Today I'm traipsing around Wombwell Woods on the trail of yet another of the Wentworth monuments that have long since been demolished, the Blacker Hill Pyramid. Like a lot of the Wentworth monuments, they were demolished unrecorded, save for a few mentions in books and periodicals. However, thanks to my old mate, the Ordnance Survey map, we do know where the pyramid was located, and that's where I'm headed today. But before we go any further, it's worthwhile mentioning that Wombwell Woods are a historic location in themselves. These woods are old. They are classified as ancient woodland, which means they've been here at least since 1600, which means they predate the Act of Union, which saw the formation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. They may even predate the formation of England in 927. In 1086, the Domesday Book was published. It is the fine tooth-comb audit ordered by William the Conqueror of his newly conquered kingdom. Wombwell is mentioned a few times in the Domesday Book, and in at least one of those instances, woodland pasture is mentioned, a considerable amount of woodland pasture. I would imagine that's indication that these woods have even been here since then. In the north side of the woods, there is evidence of Romano-British habitation going back 2,000 years. I find it really exciting to think about these woods, think how old they are, and wonder what these trees must have witnessed. Quite possibly the Roman invasion, quite possibly the Norman invasion, most certainly the British Empire, the Industrial Revolution, 2 world wars, and those Super Reds getting promoted to the Prem in 1997. Pretty much every historical event that has been recorded, at least in any great detail, I would imagine these woods were here to see it. Now, speaking of world wars, this concrete block, there used to be 2 of them, one at the other side opposite this one here. And these concrete blocks, I am told, were used as searchlight emplacements in the Second World War. I have this on good authority, mainly me mum, and she does know her history. However, I can't say I've ever read or heard anything to either categorically deny or confirm this. If anybody does have an idea what they were used for, if anybody could confirm what they were used for, please drop me a message or leave a comment on this video. However, it does leave me on to another urban legend which would kind of make sense in the context of this, and that is that Barnsley Town Hall was used as a navigation point for bombing raids by the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, during World War II. It's big, it's white, it would have almost certainly have stood out, even in the blackout. However, a lot of the things I've read in the interim have maybe convinced me that that wasn't strictly true. However, if anybody knows any different, again, please drop me an email, please leave me a comment. I really do love these woods. Some of my earliest memories are here. coming up with my mum, my dad, my brother. My dad had put pennies under the toadstools. He'd run ahead and put pennies under the toadstools. And when me and my brother got to the toadstools, we'd look under them and find a penny. And my mum and dad would tell us that the pixies left them there. I'm on the outskirts of Wombwell Woods, on the western edge, looking down over Blacker Hill. It is around this area that the pyramid would have stood. As I mentioned earlier, it's long since vanished, and there is very little known about what it looked like. So you may well ask if I'm ever going to visit a place that hasn't been demolished. However, the pyramid is mentioned in two books. An undated book of remarkable occurrences, and Joseph Wilkinson's 1879 Worsborough, its historical associations and rural attractions. It is also evident on an 1855 Ordnance Survey map where it is clearly marked pyramid. The marking is again roughly where I am stood right now. The two books describe it as a conspicuous landmark and built by Lord Strafford as an object of view from Wentworth Castle. Both books identify the wage for workers engaged in its construction as 1 shilling per day. Indeed, it would have been clearly visible from Wentworth Castle, just as Wentworth Castle is visible from where I am stood right now. You can see it just over the valley. It's roughly 3 miles away. However, the books do raise a question or two. It is said that it was built, the pyramid that is, it's said that it was built in 1705 by Lord Strafford. But if it was indeed an object of view from Wentworth Castle, if that was its purpose, it wouldn't be the Wentworths that were viewing it, as Thomas Wentworth didn't acquire Wentworth Castle until 1708. Furthermore, he wasn't Lord Strafford in 1705. He wasn't entitled the Earl of Strafford until 1711, when the title was recreated. However, Wilkinson does describe the land on which the pyramid is built as being the only land thereabouts owned by the Earl. So perhaps it was built with further acquisitions in mind, perhaps with a view that eventually Thomas Wentworth would own Wentworth Castle. However, what is true is that the Wentworths built stuff. Their monuments around town must have made for spectacular views, and Wentworth Castle itself can be seen from pretty much anywhere in Barnsley, this side of the hill that I'm stood on. They were prolific builders, and it is a real shame that a lot of their landmarks are no longer stood for us to enjoy today. Both of the books describe the pyramid as being known locally as the smoothing iron. And the smoothing iron, or the smoothie, are words still used to describe what I think was machinery that was part of Barrow Colliery. Now, before its closure in 1985, Barrow Colliery would have been right here at the bottom of the hill. Which leads me on to another urban legend, which revolves around the classic Barnsley film Kes. There is a scene in Kes where Billy Casper, the film's main character, the film's protagonist, bunks off his paper round to come and read a comic. And he sits on a hill overlooking a pit where he reads a desperate dance strip. Now, the story goes that the pit that he's overlooking is Barrow Colliery. Now, if that's true, basically Billy Casper would have been sat on this very hill while he was reading that comic. If anyone can confirm or deny or have any more information about that, please drop me an email, leave a comment, let me know. It'd be great to hear whether or not that is true, whether or not it is indeed Barra Colliery that is featured in that scene in Kent. So, not a bad morning's work for me, traipsing around town. I hope you found the information in this video of interest. I am on YouTube, I am on Facebook, and I am on Blue Sky. Give me a like, give me a follow. It is my intention at some point to do a video about a building that actually still exists. But in the meantime, I hope to speak to you all very shortly.